Welcome, dear viewers, to a realm where chills run down your spine and the unknown lurks in the shadows. Today we embark on a journey into the darkest corners of the human experience, a collection of gripping and bone-chilling horror stories that will leave you trembling with fear and anticipation. In this curated selection, we'll dive deep into the sinister world of online dating, where the line between love and terror blurs and the quest for connection takes an ominous turn. From eerie encounters with enigmatic strangers to nightmarish first dates that spiral into unspeakable horrors, these tales serve as cautionary reminders of the dangers that can lurk behind the screens of dating apps like Tinder. But be warned, these stories are not for the faint of heart. Brace yourself for a spine-tingling ride through the unknown, where every twist and turn leads to a new and terrifying revelation. So, turn off the lights, grab a cozy blanket and get ready to immerse yourself in a world where fear reigns supreme. Let the stories begin. The Tinder Terrors, a date to remember. I had always been a bit skeptical about online dating, but after a series of failed attempts at meeting someone the traditional way, I decided to give Tinder a shot. Swipe right, match, chat. It all seemed relatively straightforward. And that's how I ended up agreeing to meet Emily for a date. Emily's profile portrayed her as an outgoing, adventurous woman. She had striking blue eyes and a radiant smile that instantly caught my attention. We exchanged messages for a few days, and it became apparent that we shared a love for hiking. So, we decided to meet at a nearby trailhead for our first date. The day of the date arrived, and I found myself at the trailhead, anxiously awaiting Emily's arrival. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows through the trees, and the cool evening air hinted at the onset of fall. It wasn't long before I saw her approaching, and I couldn't help but feel a sense of excitement. Emily was even more captivating in person. She greeted me with a warm smile and a hug, and any remaining jitters melted away. Our hike through the dense forest began pleasantly enough. We talked about our interests, shared stories, and laughed easily. It felt like I was finally connecting with someone special. As we ventured deeper into the woods, the light began to fade, and the forest seemed to grow darker and more foreboding. Emily suggested we take a detour to see a hidden waterfall that was supposedly spectacular, but not well known. I agreed, not wanting to disappoint her on our first date. We followed a narrow, overgrown trail, the thick canopy of trees overhead blocking out the moonlight. It wasn't long before I started feeling disoriented. The path seemed to twist and turn in unexpected ways, and I couldn't shake the feeling that we were going deeper into the forest rather than toward any waterfall. I finally mustered the courage to speak up. "Emily, are you sure this is the right way to the waterfall?" She didn't respond immediately, and when she finally did, her voice had a strange, distant quality to it. "Trust me, it's just a little further. The waterfall is absolutely worth it." Reluctantly, I followed her, though unease gnawed at the edges of my mind. We walked in silence for what felt like hours, the only sounds being the rustling of leaves and distant hoots of owls. I tried to check my phone for reception to get our bearings, but it displayed no service. Suddenly, Emily stopped in her tracks. I nearly collided with her and asked, "What's wrong?" She turned to me, her eyes cold and devoid of the warmth I had seen earlier. "We're here," she said. We had arrived at a small clearing in the woods, but there was no sign of any waterfall. Instead, I saw an old, dilapidated cabin at the edge of the clearing. It was an eerie sight, and a sense of dread washed over me. "Why did you bring us here?" I stammered. Emily's smile returned, but it was different this time, sinister, almost predatory. "I wanted to show you something special, something only a select few have seen." Before I could react, she pushed open the cabin's creaking door, revealing a scene that would haunt my nightmares for years to come. Inside, the cabin was filled with strange, macabre artwork, all depicting disturbing scenes of violence and death. The walls were covered with newspaper clippings detailing unsolved murders and disappearances, some dating back decades. My heart raced as I realized the gravity of the situation. This wasn't a date gone wrong, it was a trap. Emily had lured me here, and I had walked right into it. Panic set in, and I knew I needed to escape before it was too late. I tried to make a run for it, but Emily was faster. She grabbed my arm and pulled me back into the cabin, locking the door behind us. The room felt like a prison, and I knew I had to find a way out. I scanned the room for anything I could use as a weapon or a means of escape. Emily circled me, her eyes never leaving me for a moment. She began to speak in a strange, rhythmic chant, her words unintelligible. It sent shivers down my spine, and I felt a growing sense of unease. Summoning all the courage I had left, I lunged at Emily, pushing her away with all my strength. She stumbled backward, and I took the opportunity to grab a heavy wooden sculpture from a nearby table. With the makeshift weapon in hand, I smashed a window and climbed out as fast as I could. The forest was pitch black, and I stumbled through the underbrush, not caring where I was going as long as it was away from that cabin. Emily's haunting chants echoed through the trees as I ran, and I couldn't shake the feeling that she was still following me. Hours later, I emerged from the forest, battered and exhausted, but I was free. I called the police, and they conducted a search of the area, but there was no sign of Emily or the cabin. It was as if it had all vanished into thin air. To this day, I can't bring myself to trust anyone I meet online, and I constantly look over my shoulder, haunted by the memory of that night. It was a Tinder date that went horribly wrong, a nightmarish encounter that serves as a chilling reminder of the dangers that can lurk behind the facade of a charming smile and a promising profile picture. The Tinder trap. It all began like any other Tinder conversation, a few witty messages, shared interests, and the promise of a potential connection. The guy's name was Chris, and his profile picture displayed a handsome, charming smile. We decided to meet at a trendy downtown bar, a place I was familiar with, to have a few drinks and get to know each other better. As I walked into the dimly lit bar, my heart raced with both anticipation and nervousness. Spotting Chris at a corner table, I approached with a friendly smile. He stood to greet me, and his appearance matched his profile, which immediately put me at ease. The evening started off well. We talked, laughed, and shared stories over cocktails. However, as the night wore on, I began to notice subtle signs that something was off about Chris. He seemed overly interested in my personal life, asking probing questions that felt invasive. Red flags started to wave in my mind, but I brushed them aside, thinking it was just a quirk of his personality. As the conversation continued, Chris mentioned that he had an intriguing collection of vintage books and rare manuscripts at his apartment, and he suggested we continue our date there. I hesitated for a moment, but his persuasive charm convinced me that it would be an exciting adventure. We hopped into a cab, and the ride to his apartment was filled with awkward silence. When we arrived, I noticed that his place was dimly lit, much like the bar we had just left. The shelves were indeed lined with old books and manuscripts, and I was momentarily distracted by their beauty. But then, Chris's behavior began to grow increasingly unsettling. He started discussing his fascination with dark, macabre subjects, from serial killers to unsolved mysteries. It was as if he had an unhealthy obsession with the darkest corners of the human psyche. I tried to steer the conversation away from these morbid topics, but Chris persisted, describing gruesome crime scenes in vivid detail. Unnerved and uncomfortable, I attempted to leave, but Chris insisted that I stay for just a little while longer. He promised to show me something extraordinary from his collection. Feeling a sense of unease but not wanting to be rude, I reluctantly agreed. Chris led me to a small, dimly lit room at the back of the apartment. The room was filled with peculiar artifacts, including antique medical instruments and unsettling artwork. In the center of the room, there was a glass case containing a human skull. My heart raced, and I realized I had made a grave mistake by coming here. As I tried to back away, Chris locked the door behind me with a sinister smile. Panic surged through me, and I demanded to be let out immediately. That's when his demeanor shifted, and he revealed his true intentions. With a chilling calmness, he confessed that he had lured me here with the intention of adding me to his collection. He explained in horrifying detail how he had targeted and kidnapped women before, keeping them trapped in this room until he tired of them. My mind raced, and I knew I had to escape before it was too late. Summoning every ounce of strength, I lunged toward the glass case, smashing it with a nearby antique. The sound of shattering glass echoed through the room as I grabbed a shard of glass and held it defensively. Chris lunged at me, and a struggle ensued. In the chaos, I managed to slash his arm, causing him to retreat. With adrenaline coursing through my veins, I unlocked the door and sprinted out of the apartment. I didn't look back, and I didn't stop running until I reached the safety of a nearby convenience store, where I called the police. Chris was apprehended, and the authorities discovered the horrifying truth about his twisted collection of human remains and his history of abducting women. It was a Tinder date gone horribly wrong, a terrifying encounter that serves as a chilling reminder of the dangers that lurk behind the screens of online dating apps. The Tinder ambush. I had always been a bit skeptical of online dating, but my friends convinced me to give Tinder a try. After a few swipes and conversations, I matched with a woman named Sarah. She had a captivating profile picture and seemed friendly in our chats. We decided to meet for a date at a quiet park on a warm, moonlit evening. The park was picturesque, bathed in the soft glow of the full moon. I arrived early, my heart pounding with a mixture of excitement and nervousness. As I waited on a park bench, I couldn't help but check my phone for the 10th time, making sure I had the right location. Soon enough, I saw Sarah approaching from a distance. She looked just as lovely as her pictures, and her smile was enchanting. As she got closer, she apologized for being a little late, explaining that she had lost track of time while getting ready. I brushed it off, thinking it was a minor inconvenience. We strolled through the park, exchanging stories and getting to know each other. Sarah was charming, and the conversation flowed effortlessly. Everything seemed perfect until she suggested we take a shortcut through a secluded wooded area. I hesitated for a moment, my instincts tingling with unease, but I didn't want to appear overly cautious on our first date. As we entered the dense woods, the atmosphere grew heavy with silence. The moonlight filtered through the thick canopy of trees, casting eerie shadows on the forest floor. My unease deepened as I realized that the path Sarah had led me onto seemed less like a shortcut and more like a secluded trail. My phone buzzed with a text message, and I noticed it was from a friend who had been following my Tinder escapades closely. It read, "Be careful. Meet in public places for the first few dates." The message sent a chill down my spine, and I decided to subtly steer the conversation back toward the park. "Hey Sarah, I think we might be heading a bit too far from the park," I said, trying to sound casual. She stopped in her tracks and turned to me with a smile that sent shivers down my spine. "Don't worry, I know where we're going." My heart raced as we continued deeper into the woods, away from the comforting glow of the park's lights. I glanced around, trying to get my bearings, but everything looked the same: trees, shadows, and silence. Suddenly, I heard rustling in the underbrush, and a group of figures emerged from the darkness. Panic surged through me as I realized we had walked right into an ambush. Sarah's charming smile had been a facade, a trap to lure me into this isolated spot. The strangers surrounding us wore masks that concealed their faces, their eyes gleaming with malevolent intent. One of them stepped forward, brandishing a knife, and my heart sank. It was clear that I was in serious trouble. Sarah, who had led me into this nightmare, stepped back, her smile now twisted into a wicked grin. "You shouldn't have swiped right on me, sweetheart," she sneered. Fear and adrenaline coursed through me as I tried to find a way out. I considered making a run for it, but the assailants were too close, and I had no idea where I was in the dark woods. I felt trapped, helpless. As the assailants closed in, I suddenly remembered the pepper spray I carried in my pocket. Without a second thought, I pulled it out and sprayed it in the direction of the attackers. Chaos erupted as they screamed and recoiled in pain, giving me just enough time to break away from their grasp. I ran blindly through the woods, not caring about the direction, desperately trying to put as much distance between me and my assailants as possible. Branches scratched at my face, and I stumbled over roots and rocks in the darkness. Hours later, I emerged from the woods, battered and bruised but alive. I called the police and reported the incident. They conducted a search of the area but found no trace of Sarah or the attackers. It was as if they had vanished into thin air. The horror of that Tinder date ambush still haunts my nightmares, a chilling reminder of the dangers that can lurk behind the facade of a charming profile picture and friendly chat. It's a story I share as a cautionary tale to anyone considering online dating, a stark reminder that trust should always be earned, not blindly given to strangers on the internet. Welcome, dear viewers, to a realm where chills run down your spine and the unknown lurks in the shadows. Today we embark on a journey into the darkest corners of the human experience, a collection of gripping and bone-chilling horror stories that will leave you trembling with fear and anticipation. In this curated selection, we'll dive deep into the sinister world of online dating, where the line between love and terror blurs and the quest for connection takes an ominous turn. From eerie encounters with enigmatic strangers to nightmarish first dates that spiral into unspeakable horrors, these tales serve as cautionary reminders of the dangers that can lurk behind the screens of dating apps like Tinder. But be warned, these stories are not for the faint of heart. Brace yourself for a spine-tingling ride through the unknown, where every twist and turn leads to a new and terrifying revelation. So, turn off the lights, grab a cozy blanket and get ready to immerse yourself in a world where fear reigns supreme. Let the stories begin. Thanks for watching. To support us, please like and subscribe.